Pro Football Today on SportsGrid, where we dive into a wild Sunday in the NFL. Week 3 delivered in big-time fashion. I think another kick was just blocked. Kevin Walsh with you. I'm joined by Donnie Rightside here. And, Donnie, we have plenty to sink our teeth into from, again, a very wild Sunday of action.
Unbelievable Sunday of action. If you're just looking at some of these final scores, you might be thinking to yourself, what planet am I on? And I'm talking about games that maybe didn't get a lot of hype this week, Kev, right? The Panthers and the Falcons, 30-0. Ooh, what a big win for Raheem Morris and the boys. No, they lost 30-0. Oh, what are we going to get at Carson Wentz at quarterback here? Didn't need much. They dropped 48 on the Bengals. All those 2-0 good vibes, and Jake Browning's going to be running around here and holding us in here till late November. Woo! We do got a lot to talk about.
And we will get to all of it here, but we begin with how the night ended, which was in MetLife, where the Giants couldn't crack 10 and the Kansas City Chiefs just ultimately rode off into the sunset. 22-9, easy win, easy cover, kind of. I mean, it was 6-0, and then the Giants were about to take the lead. And I think it was a blocked extra point to just kind of make sure all the momentum from the, early noon slate continued. This is one of those games, though, where you don't leave overwhelmed by Kansas City, Donnie, but they needed a win, and they got it.
They were lucky they were playing the Giants. And I say this, too, because the Giants are one of those teams that goes into a game and is like, oh, no. Our kicker's hurt before the snap. Now, understand this, Kevin. Long day for me yesterday. Didn't watch this game live. Woke up early. And as I was going through, first drive of the game. Giants got good field position. They're going to kick a field goal to go 3-0 and maybe start to put a little pressure on they're going for it. They're being aggressive. No! The kicker got hurt before the game, and that played a major thing all throughout, Kevin, because once you got down into scoring position, you understand as a quarterback, well, we can't kick a field goal. I got to take extra chances, and those extra chances killed the New York Giants. So you were right yesterday. We had a close game at the half, but if you're going to have an offense without a kicker and a quarterback that's throwing multiple interceptions against a team that desperately needed a win in Kansas City, that's what you got. A low-scoring game where Kansas City didn't have to open anything up, because they were basically laughing at the Giants for 3/4 of that game.
And I think for Kansas City, though, DRS, there were moments where it seemingly was going to burn them. I thought Andy Reid was pretty bad in the game. I thought he was conservative. I know a lot of people thought he would be. That doesn't mean he should have been. And I think that this is a team that needs to attack down the field. Tyquan Thornton deserves some respect. It was 7 days of people defending Mahomes going, he's throwing a Tyquan Thornton. Tyquan Thornton's bailing out Pat Mahomes when I'm watching these games. Like, ultimately, we all believe Mahomes is great, Donnie. We do. Was he great in this game? Because then we must have been watching different games. I'm not saying you're saying that, but I hear it in other places. I thought he was still inaccurate. Now, he took more chances, and I think they need to do that ultimately to win football games, because they will connect on him or get some of the pass interferences that we saw break their way.
Yep.
But still, through 3 weeks here, I don't feel like I'm watching the best quarterback in football. We don't need to shift rankings around after 3 games, but Mahomes is not playing at that level. I think that's fair to say.
It is fair to say that. But again, the cavalry is going to be coming back soon at the wide receiver position to sort of open things up. But you're right about last night. Like, at the end of that half, let me just throw a punt up in the air, and the Giants DB's like, I'll just tackle the guy out here and hope it doesn't get called. Oh, no, it got called. But how about maybe the play of the game, Kevin? Patrick Mahomes, again, to your point, throws a backward pass fired into the turf that should have been a touchdown for the Giants. Okereke picks it up, and Mahomes goes, let me just go over here and steal the football from me and save the day right now. Like, he does things that are so crazy and gets away with it here, but it is more magnified because the ease of touchdowns just isn't there yet. Like, they struggle to score points. They struggle to move the football up and down the field. And you're right about bailouts. How about that great catch by Thornton? Like, basically, hey, it's a one-on-one jump ball, somehow gets past the defender, makes a great play, and they're down at the 1-yard line. They got a lot of benefits last night, but they did win the game. But you're right. Nobody's looking at the Chiefs going like, what happened to that 3-play, 72-yard touchdown offense? That's a thing of the past.
One of the plays that interested me a ton bothered me even more because, so I needed Mahomes, Donnie, at 225 to close out a play. Look, all I'm saying is they called it an 8-yard swing pass to Brashad Smith. It stood, and then he was at 230. I don't know what happened, but the next thing you know, it was a run. He's down to 224. It was interesting, to say the least. I tweeted the play out. I don't really know about that decision. But I felt like we were on the desk. I've seen this a million times where I'm panicking. You go, you're good. 3rd and 4. They're going to throw this for a 4-yard, 5-yard gain. And Mahomes took a 50-yard deep shot on 3rd and 4 for no reason, Donnie, in the final 2 minutes of the game. It tells me, though, he wants to open this up. That's what Mahomes is seeing. It's going to be on Andy Reid, I think, now to put him in those positions a little bit. Yes, they obviously await the returns of Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. Speaking of throwing it deep, though, Russell Wilson, it's almost a gimmick now, right? We love the moon ball. Rather, selective, okay? Selective. Russ got into the goal line and proceeded to rip off intentional grounding, not even to avoid a sack. I think he just missed the throw so badly. QB draw, and then went out of the end zone, turnover on downs. The reality, DRS, is the clock is ticking as Jackson Dart's music is going to soon be playing in MetLife.
I had a QBR of 6.5 last night. And that just tells you, if you just got competent quarterback play, you probably beat the Chiefs. And that's all you were asking for when you got Russell Wilson. Like, Russ is supposed to come to town and be like, look, he's not the Russell Wilson in Seattle. We understand that. But he's going to be able to keep us in football games. And he's a veteran quarterback that's going to make the right decisions, not the absolute wrong decisions that you see. And when you watch the Giants play football, maybe it was an aberration last week. And that's how really bad the Dallas Cowboys defense is. Like, okay, Russ can still cook a little bit. Russ went from cooking to dumping the boiled water right on his head last night on Sunday Night Football. I don't know what was going on where you just had to make the competent plays. Sometimes, Kevin, that's all I ask for. Hey, Russ, you might be headed to the Hall of Fame. Can you just make the simple play that we can move the sticks? No, Donnie, I'm going to throw in the double coverage balloon balls repeatedly and not make decisions that a veteran is supposed to make. So when you look at games like this, you don't look at the Giants like, what was Russ doing there? They're not losing because of Russ. You just put the kid in there. If he makes the same mistakes, at least he's making the mistakes and can learn from it. Russ has been in the league too long to have plays like, the heck is he doing out there? And that's what you're getting now.
As someone who, I don't know if you know this, Donnie, I picked the Giants to make the playoffs. I knew the schedule was difficult, but I thought that this was a team that had good vibes, and I thought the defense would be solid enough. And through 3 weeks, Donnie, they're not making the playoffs, obviously. But I don't feel like that was a ridiculous decision because week number 1, Russ was stuck in the mud. Week 2, Russ figured it out, but they just collapsed. And week 3, once again, Russ is stuck in the mud. This is a team who I don't know if I want to say they're better than 0-3, but it doesn't feel right that they are winless, yet they probably, due to the decisions that they've made, deserve that. One decision forced upon them, though, quickly, Donnie, is Cam Skattebo being their lead running back. Some through Cam Skattebo's play, also then through the injury to Tyrone Tracy. Skattebo finished with 60 through the air, 60 on the ground, another touchdown. I don't know if the record is going to hold him back in this race because we're talking running backs more so, but Cam Skattebo feels live in the Offensive Rookie of the Year race.
He does. And by the way, Giants fans, enjoy him while you have him here because his style of play, he will last 3 years or less in the NFL. Wow. He'll be a lot of fun, but you can't just put your head down every single play and run over guys. That doesn't make any sense. And by the way, is he going to even make any money this year, Kevin? Like the amount of times he puts his head down, if Saquon's getting fined for ridiculous stuff like that, Skattebo might be in the hole for $3 million this year.
I didn't expect your Cam Skattebo breakdown to be reminiscent of how people talk about Will Ospreay.
Wait, come on.
But
killed a man with the ball out here. Come on.
There is absolutely a comparison. So the Giants could not pull off a stunner. Green Bay Packers, not as lucky. The Browns, with the upset of the season so far, will break that down next.
Enter into the magical world of McLuck.com, where even the smallest of spins can win real cash prizes. Adventure into over 1,000 of the best Vegas-style slot games. So what are you waiting for? Unlock your free welcome offer today. Join the fun where winners play and players win.
It was nice to see that even though they couldn't follow the same blueprint as last season or just the way that everyone thought their offense was going to run this year, Josh Jacobs struggled, and Jordan Love stepped up. And if you're a Packer fan, that's what you were hoping to see, is that in the moments where you can't rely on the run, can the quarterback that you invested a lot of money into, now draft capital, putting weapons around him, rise to the occasion, and he did.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
I pitched today. It's like 5 in the morning. We hammer it. He tells everyone, listen, I'm telling you guys, Esteban Loaiza is in no condition to pitch tonight. We all hammer it. We bet against the Toronto Blue Jays. We even went to the game, Scott, even. Esteban Loaiza, word of no lie, bro. He threw 8 innings, a one-hit ball.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
There's a little bit of a kerfluffle earlier today when there's an exception taken to a putt that wasn't given, and just the reactions were pretty unilateral from both sides of hey, that's not behavior that we're going to tolerate at this type of competition.
Can you talk to me about kerfluffle again? Can you run that word back? I've never heard that word before.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
It's pro football today, where I gotta say, DRS, Kevin Walsh with Donnie Rightside,
Yes.
of course. I actually think that the Green Bay Packer faithful should be pretty happy, because they basically had a Super Bowl parade because they were so good through 2 weeks. Why does it matter that they lost to the Cleveland Browns? We have ourselves, Donnie, one of those Ohtani, Vladdy Jr. Elements,
Yes.
looks like, in the NFC market too, where Eagles go to 3-0. They never lose football games. Packers lose to the Browns. Packers' number to win the NFC gets a little bit shorter. There's so much to dive into, but it's an upset over a touchdown favorite in most places for the Green Bay Packers. Up 10-0 in a game with basically under 4 minutes to go. They lose 13-10. What was your biggest takeaway from the Browns upset?
I can't believe it. I thought it was one of those games where the Packers defense would dominate. And if you would have told me, Kevin, when we were breaking down this on the show, well, how about this? Cleveland's going to score 13 points. Boom! Absolutely nailed it. Easiest pick we had all day. What was that score? 27-13? No, it was 13-10. Now, the one thing we did get right, at least I got right yesterday, was they're going to have a big-time pass rush. Now, I'm not going to take the guy that's minus 200 Micah Parsons. I'm going to go with Rashawn Gary. The only problem is, Kevin, I should have taken him to get 2 sacks, which is at least what he got yesterday, as opposed to the 1 sack. But when I look at the Packers, I know their defense is going to be dominating, but I just expected them to roll in, and Cleveland does have a very good defense, do just enough to win this football game. And Kevin, through 3 quarters, they were doing just enough to win this football game and cover this football game.
Sure were.
But in the NFL, man, squirrely things happen. Sometimes in the fourth quarter, a surefire victory turns into a loss. You have a chance to kick a field goal and win, and it turns into a long field goal for Cleveland and a chance to win. Cleveland's 1-2 on the season. I have no expectations for them, but you're right. You look at the Packers players we're talking about last week. Hey, you know what? We might be able to run the table and go undefeated. Boom. Cleveland beats you. How's that feel right now? Brings him a little bit back down to earth. I love that defense. That's not going to change, Kevin. But I know you look at Jordan Love and say, I don't care if maybe your tight end was a little banged up. I don't care that you lost Jaden Graham. How am I supposed to go anywhere without Jaden at wide receiver? You have a plethora of really good players on offense. And I don't care how good that Cleveland defense is. 10 points is ridiculous for the Packers in that spot.
So there are 2 sides to this, but the Packers losing is the story. Yeah. Teams lose games, okay? Everyone is going to lose. At some point, Buffalo will lose. At some point, Philadelphia will lose. At some point, Daniel Jones and the Colts will lose. But how you lose can tell a story. And as somebody who, Donnie, was not going to put the Packers in the playoffs until the Parsons trade, that shifted it enough I had to put him in. I think it's on display why. I don't trust their play calling, and I don't trust their quarterback. I think they are sometimes Josh Jacobs, okay? I get it, Mr. Touchdown, had the streak snapped. We're at 3.1 yards per rush. Hasn't had a game at 4 yards per rush yet. That's awful. He was under 2 yards a carry against Cleveland. That's awful. Jordan Love and his turnovers are backbreakers, and that's not something that's going to go away. It is almost, Donnie, it feels a guarantee that the Packers season will end with Jordan Love throwing a pivotal interception in the game. I remember it last year vividly. I know people are like, don't bring the Eagles into this. You have to. They're the 2 NFC favorites. The Eagles beat the Packers last year in the wild card round. Jordan Love threw 3 interceptions, and the talk was about how bad the Eagles quarterback was in the game. What world are we in here? Jordan Love, Donnie, sitting at, a top 5 MVP. Yeah. Where? Through what lens are we watching? I'm sorry. It is. These are things that I am not going to just push aside because they are the shiny new toy in the NFC.
And you saw, if you can take a look at yesterday, Kevin, between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Green Bay Packers, right? Here's the tale of 2 quarterbacks there. And some will say, similar in stature, similar in talent levels. Not the case, though. Not similar in what's going on in their brain at this point. You saw the Philadelphia Eagles couldn't run the football. So you know what they did? Goes, you know what? Good defense. Let me turn it out. Hey, Jalen, we know you can do this. Go out and throw a couple of touchdowns in the second half. Boom, he did that. Now, why don't we have that same look at Love where we go, what did you want him to do, Kevin? They didn't have a running game. One of their wide receivers was out. One of their tight ends got banged up in practice this week. It's almost like we cover for things like that. And again, we know Cleveland has a great defense, but your defense, the Green Bay Packers defense, was phenomenal in that football game. That should be a double-digit victory going away for the Green Bay Packers.
Absolutely.
But they had nothing on offense, Kevin. Absolutely nothing yesterday.
Yeah, again, the Jordan Love and that 3rd and 3 interception turned this into a completely different situation, and that is exactly what we saw. On the Browns side of it, though, Donnie, because I do think it's relevant, I still think this is a bad football team. I thought they were the worst in the league coming into the season. I thought Myles Garrett, due to that fact, had no chance to win Defensive Player of the Year. Through 3 weeks, everyone who watched that game against Baltimore getting to 41 was a miracle. They didn't play that well. It was an odd one. The Browns might have the best defense in football, and I don't think it's an overreaction, Donnie. At this point, unless Myles Garrett gets injured, he deserves Defensive Player of the Year. Micah Parsons is great. Myles Garrett's the best defensive player in football. It's not really close.
Yeah, no, going back and watching that Baltimore game, which I did the very next day, and I saw that firsthand, I'm not so sure who's the better team right now. And I'm saying, and that's how bad Cleveland was on offense, but their defense was that good. Game record at every single position for them. They don't allow yards on the ground, and it is a micro. You say, look, 41 points, what did they do? Short fields all game long, defensive touchdowns, special team touchdowns. Those things add up by the end of the game at that point. Cleveland is bad, and I'm starting to wonder when they're going to actually move on from Joe Flacco, because that's always stated. It doesn't make any sense for Flacco to play more than 3 or 4 games. That was a miracle victory for the Cleveland Browns, but again, a miracle victory because of how good their defense was. And again, in game number 1 against Joe Burrow, they held that team down as well and should have won, but they just missed a short kick at the end of the football game. Theoretically, they should be 2-1 with no help really from their offense whatsoever.
Quickly, DRS.
Yeah.
Flacco, how long do you think he gets here as this team's quarterback? Because he is not good. He can't move.
No, he's not good. He can't move, and that was the whole handicap on the Packers getting to him. So for me, he's got maybe 2 more games. I said it before, Kevin. If he's playing games in October, you're doing this team a disservice for the rest of the future of the franchise.
All right, we're going to go from the one favorite in the NFC in Green Bay to the other favorite in the NFC, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. But I will say it now, and I will say it again, because I know some people are thinking, it's a pair of Eagles fans. One, most unbiased man in history of sports media. Don't be ridiculous, okay? But I will get it out in front of this. If you bet the Rams plus 3.5, my heart is with you. That is the worst beat I imagine you will see this year on a side. Devastating to watch that play out, but another win for the Philadelphia Eagles. What does it mean? We'll tell you next.
look at the weather, try to look for some anytime touchdowns or maybe some props that you really feel confident about. But it's always the time for urgency, especially for a team like the New York Giants. I think that defense is something that can give Giants fans hope. And then if you get Dart under center, it's hope. And then if you can get Scatterboo out there and the whole building's going boo, it's hope. And as we know, hope works.
Fantasy sports today, only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the Super Bowl market, if you're in the futures market, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is heavily connected to the Kansas City Chiefs. I am sure it would be Tyreek's first place if he could pick to go back to. At least I would think it would be. And the Chiefs have a need, and the Chiefs are interested, and they're not worried about any of his other question marks.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Pro Football Today, we shift to what some believed was the biggest game in your Sunday Week 3 slate. A 2-0 Eagles against a 2-0 LA Rams, and it looked like it was going to be the first loss for Philly that happened in a game that Jalen Hurts finished since before the bye of last year. And it is incredible the way the Eagles have been able to win, but sometimes you get got. And for the Rams, this was a Super Bowl level effort. You saw it. You saw it in their emotions. They were dying to beat the Eagles because for the Rams, for their last 13 games or 12 games removed Week 18, if they're not playing the Eagles, they win. They beat everybody who is not the Eagles. Their last 9 games, Donnie, against teams removing Week 18 that are not the Eagles, they're 9-0, allowing 15.4 points per game. But now, against the Philadelphia Eagles, in that same exact stretch, 0-3, allowing 32.7 points per game. And yet it seemed as if they were going to have the best defensive performance for this young defense that they could hang their hat on. The Eagles couldn't move the ball after a short field touchdown following a Zach Bond interception. In fact, the Eagles not being able to move the ball continued into the second half when Jalen Hurts was fumbled the ball on a sack. And then it was touchdown, a turnover on downs, and another touchdown. The blocked field goal return, devastating if you took the Rams. But the Eagles took this game away from L.A.
Yeah, exactly. And looking at that game as a whole, I thought the Eagles would win. I thought the line was perfect at 3.5, and boy, was it perfect. And coming down to the end of the game, depending on which way you had it, that's a tough beat, specifically if you were on the Rams at that point. But I always thought the Rams, Kevin, would be able to move the football. Love that 19.5, little bit juice total at a -135. They had 19 points at the half, scored that touchdown quick in the second half, put that one away. But I was starting to think, like, watching the Eagles game optimistically, saying, man, are we really going to go back to 2 years ago where the season started well or decent? And again, that was a 10-1 football team that collapsed at the end of the year. But now we're saying like, oh, look at this. Kevin Patullo can't structure anything. He goes, how can you have this many weapons and be healthy on offense and have like 30, 20, whatever it was, yards at the half? But something clicked in the second half, which you understand this. Get A.J. Brown the football. Really good things happen. And they did. Get Devontae Smith the football. Really good things happen. When you open up the passing game, then you can start to run the football a little bit better. But it was nice to see the Eagles open up in the second half. But let's get back to the Rams and how you have to actually knock out a Super Bowl championship. You look at the kicker. He attempted 6 field goals, Kevin. You can't do that. You have to have your foot on the gas pedal the entire way and be aggressive and convert those red zone opportunities into touchdowns as opposed to field goals. But having said that, in what world do we live in where like a blocked field goal feels like, Kevin, happens like once every month in the NFL? And they went crazy yesterday across the league, but in the Eagles game, to have 2 blocked kicks, that, understand this, momentum is key. They go up 8 points at the end of that football game. Yeah, the Eagles actually scored a touchdown, but missed the 2-point conversion. They'd be taking knees at the end of the game instead of needing to score at that point. But also at the end of the game, it wasn't like it was, hey, he's lining up a 65-yarder, Kevin. We're going to have to hit a line drive and crush it, and you can block it. I've never seen 2 defensive tackles in back-to-back field goal blocks that looked like it was a high school game. Like, nobody's blocking me. I will run everybody over, and I will stand in front of your kicker, and he can't make the kick here. Tremendous gut punch there for the Rams and an unbelievable victory for the Eagles. But my takeaway from this game is not that the Rams are bad. They're a good football team. They'll be in the playoffs as long as they stay healthy. But now I look and say, give some flowers to Jalen Hurts. Nothing was going right. They're down 26-10. So, 26-7. You can just tuck tail and go home. He's like, you know what? Put this offense on me. Boom, boom, boom. They're in the end zone, momentum, and away they went. He was phenomenal in the second half, but most people are like, well, he has a great offensive line, Saquon Barkley, and 2 wideouts. He should have did it the whole game. There's never going to be too much credit not given to Jalen Hurts. He was spectacular. And Kevin, maybe his best half of football he ever played in the second half.
Yeah, I think that is possible. I thought A.J. Brown was fantastic as well.
Right.
Look, the Eagles are going to need to blow some teams out to show that this isn't how they're trying to live and die by close victories. You know, there's some early season comparisons to last year's Chiefs, and you don't want those comparisons. That is a through line there. But we've been wondering, when is Philly's pass offense going to look like the talent it has? And it finally did. There are still questions for Philadelphia, right, to play a full 60-minute game. But they are sitting right now 3-0 and probably deserve right now to sit atop the market. For the Rams, let's be very clear here. Should they have won this game? Probably. Again, should they have covered? Definitely. This is an awful loss. You now have to, in your building, ask yourself, can someone else please beat Philly for us? If you're trying to make a run through the NFC, can someone else please beat Philly for us? Here's the other problem. The NFC West might be fantastic. They're tied for last, the Rams, at 2-1. And it is just one of these divisions that looks like it's going to be tight the whole way. Every single result is going to matter. What a result for the Chicago Bears. What did Caleb Williams prove? We'll talk about that next on SportsGrid.
Look at the weather, try to look for some anytime touchdowns or maybe some props that you really feel confident about. But it's always the time for urgency, especially for a team like the New York Giants. I think that defense is something that can give Giants fans hope. And then if you get Dart under center, it's hope. And then if you can get Scatterboo out there and the whole building's going boo, it's hope. And as we know, hope works.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the Super Bowl market, if you're in the futures market, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is heavily connected to the Kansas City Chiefs. I am sure it would be Tyreek's first place if he could pick to go back to. At least I would think it would be. And the Chiefs have a need, and the Chiefs are interested, and they're not worried about any of his other question marks.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, Only on SportsGrid.
If you were to sit down and power rank who needs a win the most, right, entering week number 3, the Chiefs probably top that list. The Chicago Bears wouldn't have been far behind, as this is a team who, in year number 2 of Caleb Williams, had a second straight season of expectations, and last year, a nightmare. A lot of that, though, chalked up to Matt Eberflus. Well, the start of this season, a nightmare. And on the other side of the field is Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator, former Bears head coach of Caleb Williams, but now the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys. Well, statement made. Caleb Williams went out there and played maybe the best game of his young career. Just 2 yards away from 300 total passing and 4 passing touchdowns from the word go. This offense was on. I know the Dallas defense is bad. We'll talk about the Dallas defense being bad. But, Donnie, what was your takeaway from Caleb Williams' dazzling performance?
You get the glimpse, Kevin, and that's all you need. You just need to say, like, hey, man, Ben Johnson is a offensive genius. Where was that genius in the first couple games? We didn't say, like, oh, no, that means Caleb's a bust. Not going back to college and all the weaponry that he has and the absolute howitzer on his arm and the ability to make plays with his legs. We weren't seeing it. So we were out. And most people don't have patience anymore in the NFL. Well, he played last year for a defensive coordinator, and he was supposed to throw for 350 every game with Ben Johnson. Nonsense. They finally found their rhythm. He made throws that most people can't make in the NFL and with an unbelievable arm talent. He did that yesterday. There's hope in Chicago. You need to feel good. I understand. It was the Dallas Cowboys, and they made Russ look like he was going to the Hall of Fame once again with like 600 yards passing and 19 touchdowns against that defense. But I tell you, you just watch that football game and eyeball Caleb Williams. That's a player that can do some damage in the NFL if he hones that talent with a really good offensive coordinator, which he has. You got the running game, only 3 yards per carry. Oh, no, it's going to be all in Caleb. Some of those throws were tremendous. Some of those guys weren't open, and his arm goes, you want to run 60 yards down that field? I'll put it right over your shoulder, and he did that. I loved what I saw. I expected it, by the way, Kevin. Morning Crunch, over 3.5 touchdown passes in this game. Loved it. He threw 4 himself. I just needed that glimpse that he can be this type of quarterback. I got that Sunday, Kevin.
Yeah, in droves, and I think sometimes when there's a mismatch, right? People are quick to be dismissive. Oh, it's Dallas's defense, right? A college football example when Florida State puts 70 on Kent State. It's like, it's Kent State. Well, you're supposed to put up 70, right? Don't put up 30. Don't struggle. Don't let it be ugly. And for Caleb Williams, Donnie, this was an incredible performance and something that the Chicago Bears needed, not only for Caleb Williams, but for Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is supposed to be one of the best offensive minds in the NFL. And I didn't feel like we had seen that through 2 weeks. It felt like we saw that, the flea flicker, of course, down the field, to Luther Burden, and a number of different designs. And I think for Chicago, you grab this win, and maybe the loss to Minnesota in week 1 will haunt them when the season comes to a close. But, Donnie, there's a chance to turn the corner here. Next week, they go to Las Vegas. It's not going to be easy. Nothing ever is in the NFL, but that's a winnable football game. They then hit a nice early bye, and they'll come out and play Washington. We don't know if Caleb's classmate and Jaden Daniels will be back at that time. And then they're home for New Orleans. I'm not telling you this team is just going to rip off 4 in a row, easy peasy, no problem. But at 0-2, I think they would take 3-3 in Chi-Town, and that looks really on the board now for this football team, unless you think I'm overreacting.
No, I don't think you're overreacting, but for me, again, for Chicago fans, I don't think Super Bowl's the sky's the limit. What we're understanding here is Ben Johnson's coming to town to hopefully be their coach for a decade and build that foundation from the ground up.
But they had playoff expectations, Donnie, don't you think?
No, I understand. But that's all the hype. And yeah, I don't say I was buying into the hype, but I thought they'd have a good season. Meaning, Kevin, final 2 games of the year, chance to make the playoffs, right? I wasn't expecting playoffs, but this team should not be, hey, we're 1-6 and we're just going to play out the string and hope our quarterback is good. But understand this, if the defense falters, I don't care. I just need to see this offense look the way it did on Sunday, where you can be explosive and you can also have a quarterback, Kevin, because correct me if I'm wrong, what did you like in this game? No interceptions out of Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
How about this? No interceptions out of Caleb Williams, 4 touchdowns, and a 142 passer rating. For me, I'm more interested in how the offense looks on a week-to-week basis, which I was very disappointed to start the season. I now look at that and I'm like, you know what? build on this Chicago. And you're right. They have enough talent to beat the teams they're supposed to beat, right? Now, when you level up in competition, you see if you can get that 50-50 split the rest of the way. But there's no reason to believe they can't be competitive enough to be in the playoffs. But this was a really good sign for them because you're right. That deflating loss and then also having Ben Johnson go, man, we just went to Detroit. We don't even practice hard, so this isn't a championship team. They heard that message this week, and they played like it, both offensively and defensively.
No interception for Caleb Williams.
Yeah.
2 of them for Dak, including 1 DRS. I know took away an opportunity for you to hit a best bet on his multiple passing touchdowns. My question is, what was the bigger issue on Sunday? Dallas's defense or Dallas's offense?
A combination is the easy way out. It really wasn't. The offense had, 14th break, which, again, just got shut out in the second half. Now, also this. There's no escape, clause in this, but CeeDee Lamb going down in the first quarter, that was half of my handicap was CeeDee and George Pickens are going to crush this football team. And I bet Pickens to score a touchdown, and he did. And then Pickens tried to catch a football with his hands like this for an interception in the fourth quarter, which almost wanted to throw my TV out the window. But for me, this defense is not going to be good, Kevin, for the entire season. You were hoping that the offense could go toe-to-toe with other teams. CeeDee Lamb down, 4 to 6 weeks now with a high ankle sprain? And also, correct me if I'm wrong with this, though, Kevin. The end of the football game, just take my bet out of the equation.
Yeah.
They're down 17 with roughly 5 minutes to go, and Joe Milton comes in the game, and I'm going it's kind of, I'm not expecting, because that's usually one of those drives that goes, things didn't work out our way. We got 5 minutes. Dink and dunk our way down the field, score a touchdown with 2 minutes to go. The game's over anyway, but let's get back into the good vibe business. And they let Milton go in there, and he eventually throws an interception into the end zone.
Yeah.
I was just surprised how this game actually turned out, and you're right about this, though. Down 17 points, 1st and goal at the 5-yard line. You're supposed to walk that touchdown. Kevin, even if they ran the football in, to not even get into the end zone at that point, just absolutely brutal for the Cowboys.
Look, the Dallas defense was worse than the offense. The Dallas defense was atrocious. But the offense is a bigger problem because unless, you were drinking some level of Kool-Aid from somewhere, the Dallas defense is going to be bad. Micah Parsons was traded. And I didn't think it was going to be very good if Parsons wasn't traded. This offense is supposed to hang and give them life, right? That was the idea. Dak was, ear to the ground. There's MVP chatter. Through 2 weeks of football. Mind you, they were 1-1 and nearly lost to the Giants. It would have been 0-2. But that's what was going on. Yeah. And now you look at it, and you have CeeDee Lamb likely out 2+ weeks, I think we could call it, right, Donnie?
Yeah.
Do you trust Dallas's offense?
No.
Big picture, right? Could they step up here and there, game to game? You and I talk about Bumslayer Prescott. Sure. But this offense needed to be top 8, elite level good to make up for the backside, and that just doesn't feel on the board.
No, and Kevin, we keep our mind on this. We don't have a Lamar Jackson at quarterback, which means we run around. Dallas went into a football game, Kevin, when they finished that game with 6.1 yards per carry on the ground, and they still couldn't do anything. CeeDee's out. We can't. Nothing makes sense with the Cowboys. What were they built from the beginning of the year?
It's a great
Regular
point.
Season Dak, healthy CeeDee, George Pickens coming over. Oh, we found the running back because we had none last year. Hey, they should move the football and be easy. No points in the second half against the Chicago Bears when the entire fourth quarter was played against a prevent defense. That's as bad as it gets, and that's a problem. For Jerry Jones, hey, let's trade Micah Parsons, our only viable option on defense, because we're going to spend money in the future. It looks horrible. We're putting all our money and our weight on Dak Prescott, and he gave you that performance on Sunday. It's a bad look for the Cowboys right now. It is.
I will just add this quickly on the Bears. This team, props-wise, aside from Caleb, looks impossible. It really does. DJ Moore gets out, he almost had as many carries as he had catches. DeAndre Swift is still not an efficient runner. They are probably hoping it can eventually be Kyle Monangai. Colston Loveland got banged up in this football game. He had himself a big catch, was never to be seen again. Cole Kmet's still there. Luther Burden ended up with 100 yards. I think Rome Odunze is clearly the number one. I think.
It's Detroit all over again, Kevin.
Yeah.
Detroit all over. There's too many options and none are good.
Yeah, it's an absolute madhouse there. We mentioned the CeeDee Lamb injury, a devastating one. There were a lot of huge injuries that we saw over this weekend. Nick Bosa for the 49ers, James Conner for the Arizona Cardinals. Mike Evans left early in that football game against the New York Jets. We will talk about what it all means for you heading into week 4 next on SportsGrid.
Look at the weather, try to look for some anytime touchdowns or maybe some props that you really feel confident about. But it's always the time for urgency, especially for a team like the New York Giants. I think that defense is something that can give Giants fans hope. And then if you get Dart under center, it's hope. And then if you can get Scottaboo out there and the whole building's going boo, it's hope. And as we know, hope works.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the Super Bowl market, if you're in the futures market, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is heavily connected to the Kansas City Chiefs. I am sure it would be Tyreek's first place if he could pick to go back to. At least I would think it would be. And the Chiefs have a need, and the Chiefs are interested, and they're not worried about any of his other question marks.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Pro Football Today here with you on SportsGrid. I'm Kevin Walsh. I'm with Donnie Rightside, and unfortunately, we're getting deeper into the NFL season, which means more and more injuries are going to pop up. We mentioned the CeeDee Lamb one. Let me just ask you quickly, Donnie. George Pickens props, all systems go. Can't set numbers high enough for this guy moving forward while Lamb is out?
Yes, but I say this with caution.
Uh-oh.
George Pickens isn't, let's just say, wide receivers are crazy as is in their head. But when things start to go a little south with George Pickens, he's the type of guy that doesn't feel like playing the rest of the game when he doesn't get the football on the first drive. There's a reason, guys, where he's not still in Pittsburgh. Wait, why would you get rid of Pickens in Pittsburgh? Because they saw the writing on the wall. This guy's going to implode sooner than later, and you saw it yesterday with a great pass by Dak Prescott, turned into an interception on his fingertips, and you saw him on the sidelines basically trying to break his helmet, so he probably couldn't go back into the football game, and every time they showed him throughout the rest of that fourth quarter, he had a towel over his head where you couldn't see his face. All systems go, yes, but it feels like all systems better be going, Kevin, by the first 2 drives, or he just will check out for that football game. Is it Turpin season? People are saying that.
Or is it the player who currently has the second most receptions in the NFL?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah.
Jake Ferguson with 13 catches on 14 targets in this game. Certainly something to watch. Nick Bosa, Donnie, goes down for the end of the season, a torn ACL. Nick Bosa was my pick to win Defensive Player of the Year coming into the season, and I thought he was off to a good start. Well, he falls the victim to this Niners curse. I mean, injuries, this is a real thing, okay? You can have injury-prone players, but as a team, usually, if you have an injury season from hell, it's going to usually bounce back your way. Well, maybe try again next year, San Francisco. I mean, this team is 3-0. We're almost like bypassing the fact that they've been a backup quarterback for each of these 2 games in Mac Jones. Yes. George Kittle is supposed to be their most reliable player because we don't know what CMC is going to be on a week-to-week basis. George Kittle's not been playing since week number 1. Juwan Jennings was out for this most recent football game. Brandon Ayuk is obviously still not back. it was almost Donnie in a way that was like, yeah, but we can rely on the defense. To lose Nick Bosa is devastating here. When you start 3-0, you've got an excellent chance to make the playoffs. But big pictures Niners without Bosa, it's much harder sell.
Not a threat. Not a threat. Not a threat at all. And they are 3-0. And you can give Shanahan a lot of credit for that because winning with backup quarterbacks and basically backup wide receivers doesn't matter how you get the job done in the NFL and you win. But we're talking about big game situations, Kevin, right? Let's focus on late December, January, and maybe into February. When you're in that 3rd and 2 where the other team leads that first down, you know who's wrecking that pocket guaranteed? It's Bosa. He's not there anymore. So somebody else has to step up. Bryce Huff's going to step up. Looks like he did for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. That's not the case. You can't lose superstar talent, Kevin, because those guys in the biggest situations always rise to the occasion. And also, my favorite, theme here. Once you get injuries, Kevin, they just don't stop. They got their 4 injuries for the year, got them out of the way in September. Not the case. You're going to have attrition all year long. And when you start the season banged up, Kevin, it's very your team gets healthier. Hey, guys are coming back here. We think Brandon Ayuk's knee is going to be fantastic on a week-to-week basis at this point. You think Christian McCaffrey couldn't even get out of bed over the summer with calf injuries, that he's getting all this usage rate, that he's going to be wonderful by the time we hit Thanksgiving? 3-0, good for them. They're not going to be any player in the NFC when it comes down to who's going to be in the NFC Championship game. There's going to be too much attrition in that lineup, Kevin. I believe that.
It's possible, Donnie. They were my pick, actually, to make it out of the NFC. Could Michael Williams come on? They still have Fred Warner. But, John Lynch, who's been given a lot of praise over the years and has deserved a lot of praise, he may have to get creative, right? This could end up being one of the more important deadlines when we get there within the NFL. James Conner, Donnie, done for the year, suffered on the other side of the field of this game. Just a great player who's been really, really good for Arizona. It's likely now going to see, this get turned up to Trey Benson, who is a year 2 running back. Kind of another situation similar in L.A., Donnie, but maybe a little more impactful to the market. Najee Harris with a torn ACL, not even just trying to get off to get a handoff. Amarian Hampton, the round 1 rookie for the Chargers, ended up, because Najee was injured a little bit earlier on into this football game, Donnie. Amarian Hampton ended up with 70 rushing yards, a rushing touchdown, and 6 catches for 59 through the air. He's a real threat in the offensive rookie of the year market as well.
Yeah, he now hits the gas pedal, Kevin, because I do think Harbaugh is a very smart head coach. Hey, man, I got a competent backup behind him. We don't have to overuse the rookie. But as he starts to learn how the NFL works, we'll probably use him more and more as we get late in the season as a ground gainer. Now he's thrust into that in September, Kevin. There's no looking back. There's no, let's just bring in and piecemeal this year with some backup running backs. He is your guy the rest of the way when they wanted to take a little bit off his plate. Well, his plate's full of food right now, and he better eat because they're going to need him. And if there's any indication of what we saw with him being thrust into that 1, 2, 3 down back, I liked what I saw. I got to tell you.
Yeah, I think that he is live, especially as the Chargers continue to win. If that's going to creep into these narratives, DRS, it could be a separator. But Emeka Egbuka's at the top and may end up with a huge workload next week against the Philadelphia Eagles because Mike Evans missing that game feels like a certainty.
Yep, does feel like a certainty. By the way, you know me, Kevin. I'm not a doctor. I play one on TV. Specialization in hamstring injuries. Don't tell, the media still buys into this. Hey, Mike Evans is due for an MRI on his hamstring. We'll see about this week. You won't see about this week. Mike Evans is not going to play this week. He has a hamstring injury. So maybe there's Egbuka time here, and maybe the Eagles can catch a break. By the way, did you know the Eagles are going to fly down a day early, Kevin? Because going down to Tampa on Saturdays has not worked in their favor for the past 50 years, it feels like. Something to keep an eye on. But Egbuka better step up here. But it's Baker. It almost feels like he doesn't even need wideouts. He just makes things happen.
The last team to beat the Eagles in a game that Jalen Hurts finished was the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I think it will be interesting just to, again, acknowledge those offensive rookie of the year odds. By the way, Cam Ward does not feel like a serious threat. The Titans are terrible, and I don't think playing quarterback for a terrible team is going to get you the award because you play quarterback. I know Ashton Jefty's really talented.
Yep.
I almost think that's the point. They can't run block right now in Vegas. He is getting touched at the line of scrimmage every single carry. Those were your top 2 contenders entering into the year. I think both are fade-worthy in this market. Emeka Egbuka and Tyler Warren, absolutely worthy of their status. Who knows, though? Quinshon Judkins has been incredible for Cleveland in those 2 games. Does Jackson Dart enter that conversation?
No.
These are all things we'll keep our eyes on. It is a prime time preview next on Pro Football Today.
Look at the weather, try to look for some anytime touchdowns or maybe some props that you really feel confident about. But it's always the time for urgency, especially for a team like the New York Giants. I think that defense is something that can give Giants fans hope. And then if you get Dart under center, it's hope. And then if you can get Scatterboo out there and the whole building's going boo, it's hope. And as we know, hope works.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
If you're in the Super Bowl market, if you're in the futures market, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
Tyreek Hill is heavily connected to the Kansas City Chiefs. I am sure it would be Tyreek's first place if he could pick to go back to. At least I would think it would be. And the Chiefs have a need, and the Chiefs are interested, and they're not worried about any of his other question marks.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
It's the most beautiful time of the year. No, not because of foliage or pumpkin spice lattes. It's because of football. SportsGrid has you covered all season long, covering every snap, every score, and every line move. Prepare, watch, win. Weekends are for winners. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We got ourselves a runner, baby. It's Pro Football Today. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, DRS, Monday Night Football between the Ravens and the Lions. And when I say we've got ourselves a runner, that is this total. And, well, I'm chasing this thing down. I'm on the hunt here, DRS, 53.5. And you know me, sometimes I like to wait. But I said, man, this thing's been climbing so much. That's probably the best of the number. Let me place my wager and leave it at that. Whoop. We're up to 54. I said, you know what? I'm not scared. That's going to be top of the market. I'll play 54. This thing's at 54.5 now. And Donnie, if this is a shootout, I might need a day off. I'm in again. I bet this total 3 times at 3 different numbers. I'm under Ravens-Lions.
Love that, too. And when you get that big start, like 14-14 first quarter, you just shut it off and say, I'm just going to go to bed at this point because I know how this game ends up. But understand this. 8 out of every 10 tickets here, Kevin, coming in on the over for this football game. And look, when you look at the 2 offenses, there's no shortage of talent. And what's the Ravens' MO? Who cares who they play? 30-plus points in the bank right away. But we've seen a lot of these games in Baltimore, Kevin, where you expected shootouts. The Ravens are there to provide that shootout, and their defense just comes up and punches you in the mouth. They're good at every level. This is also a dome team going outdoors, which could shake things up a bit. But it is hard. Like, there is nobody in their right mind, and maybe you're not in your right mind, that looks at this and goes, yeah, 17-14, that seems like it should be fine. Like, Lamar just makes plays happen. Who cares who the defense is or the pass rushers? And you look at that offense like, oh, look, Ben Johnson left town.
Oh, come on.
Week number 1, they're terrible. Week number 2, they dropped a 50 spot, which includes 5 touchdown passes and multiple weapons all over the place. So that's the way I look at it. But I'm with you. We've seen it so many times, Kevin. Hey, this game's headed towards an over. What happened in the second half? Similar to what you saw yesterday if you bet that Bears over. Who would have thought that game would stay under the total after the first half you have? Crazy things happen. And when you deal with, Kevin, 54.5s, sometimes you're just looking at 1 4th down stop, 1 missed field goal, and you can't catch up.
Yeah, it's one of those things, like, again, maybe I'm not in my right mind, Donnie, but this is as good of a sell-high spot as we may see on a total all year. The Ravens have scored 40 in each of the first 2 games.
Yep.
You don't score 43 games in a row. That just doesn't happen. I went through in Lamar's tenure. He's done it twice prior, and in the next week he scored 27 and 20 respectively in those games. And you might think, well, he scores 27, you're done for. They would have to lose the game for me to be done for. That's well under their team total. The Detroit Lions, Donnie, last year when they scored 50, which happened twice, they scored 24 the next week each time. 27-24, bust out the pillows and blankets, baby. We're tucked. We're under the number. That's just what it is. Yeah. So we are and the fact that it's running up as well, I just think, again, usually, hey, I got my 53.5. It lands 54, 55. What am I going to do? Donnie, I've liked this total since it came out. Donnie, so this number started, you can probably, the first number I saw, I think, was 51.5. Maybe I was late to it, right? I don't know what you're seeing the opener for this number. But, Donnie, at 51.5, I knew when we got to Monday, I would be betting under. I just think Donnie, I don't think there's going to be 75 points in this game. I'm sorry. If it was in Detroit, it'd be different.
Now, here, again, you like to look ahead lines, right, which I'm not going to do, but understand the perception of this, right? Oh, look at Detroit, week number 1. Boy, they stink on offense, and then Johnson. Wait, 51? They're back? Oh, my God, 50 points every single week. That's where we get a hold of it. That's why we start out at 51.5 and find ourselves at 54.5, because you're looking at the options. But understand this. This isn't the Detroit Lions defense of last year. They're healthy now. This isn't a Ravens team that's depleted at the end of the year. They're good on the defensive line, linebacker, and in the secondary. They're 2 really good defenses in a high-stakes game. And also, like, the NFL doesn't put out every game as a 40-point total. Whoa! They're going over it. It's 54.5. 27-24. What a great game, high scoring. Yeah, you lost your bet as well.
Yeah, I find this to be a spot, Donnie, where the under is the play. And I'll say this as well, but Donnie, for people with boosts, right, or no sweats, here's one thing you can do. I'll give you a perfect example, DRS, okay? Derrick Henry for a touchdown, Jahmyr Gibbs for a touchdown, under the 53.5 is over 6-1.
Yeah.
I'm not saying no one's going to score in the football game. Like, I think this is the kind of night we can get creative as well. Anything you want to let the people know you're on for this game before we get out of here?
Yeah, how about this? Build it out, right? 1 touchdown pass for each quarterback, and the game goes over 40 points. Bang, baby! I don't even know if that'll get you back to plus money, but it sounds good. No,
there is no way that would get you to plus money.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm joking. Over 5.5 receptions for Zay Flowers tonight. I think he gets 6. He really looks the part this year, Kevin, and he's the main part of that offense. He'll get the target share tonight. No reason to believe he doesn't get the 6 catches. None.
Each quarterback for a passing touchdown under 53.5 plus 183. DRS. So now, lower. Meanwhile, without the under, it's minus 363. Out here, we're having a little bit of fun here. If you put the over in it on, plus 103. Oh boy, here we go. I think I just got DRS to the window. That is Pro Football Today on SportsGrid.
They have Boise State, they have Arkansas, they have USC. There's no shot in Purdue. Those are the only big games that they have the rest of the way. They're not getting back into the college football playoff. They're not, Donnie. I don't care if they've won 10 straight.
Remember when they lost to NIU? No way, no care. What happens the rest of the season? They can't get in. Who was in the college football championship last year?
But they had marquee wins at some point.
I don't care. They lost to NIU.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
I needed a mental break when the season was over. Because it's a lot. It's a lot. You get tired of training. But, man, I never get tired of playing golf. I love it. I mean, every course is different. Every day is different. And some days you're like, oh, I got this. I got it. Then you go out there and shoot a 95 the next day. I'm like, damn.
The Smiley Show. Only on SportsGrid.
NFL season with about 750,000 downloads. Really interesting when you look at the 3rd and the 4th spot. You have Bet365 and Fanatics, which were, again, that first week, they were the only sports books that grew. The good news for the other sports books in terms of downloads this week is even when you take out Fanatics and Bet365, app downloads still grew about 20% across the board overall.
Newswire. Only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left, Donnie, for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.